Welcome back, Transitional Math students. We're about to end the crash course economic videos that we would like for you to view and to be able to see. This will be videos 6 through 10, and this will be something special that I will give to you all. For those that continuously watch the videos and do the work like you're supposed to, I appreciate that very much. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and go over some of these main questions that could help you with your test. This will be the last unit test that you will be taking this semester. Also, there will be a final test, a final exam. If you took the Coyote test, then you will not have to take the final exam. The Coyote test will be counted toward your final exam as far as a grade. If you made benchmark, you would receive an automatic 100. If you did not get benchmark, then basically we would translate that score and we would scale that score to be able to fit as far as part of your final exam grade. For those that have not taken the Coyote test, we will send that out later on for you all to be able to take. And then also, if you have taken the Coyote test, you can take this other exam to see if you cannot get a higher score. That's up to you. So with that being said, we're going to go over this test with you, and hopefully you'll get this turned in very quickly. Only just a few days left here in this semester. So let's start off with number 1. Blank is the market value of all goods and services newly produced in a country in 1 year. That is going to be our gross domestic product. So choice A. Number 2, economists look at something called GDP per capita to determine how much wealth a country is, or how wealthy a country is. So both 1 and 2, you should receive those as A for this test. So here I'm helping you, going over this and just appreciating those that actually have taken time to watch the videos. Number 3, economists argue that the main reason some countries are rich is because of their productivity. Productivity would be choice D. Number 4, which of the following is not a factor of production? Well, in this case, that would be C. Land, capital, and labor are all parts of the factors of production. You gotta have land, you gotta have capital, you gotta have labor, you gotta have workers, you gotta have wealth, you gotta have money. So all that plays a part there when it comes to the factors of production. Moving ahead, number 5, blank is the amount of physical goods and services that can be bought by a given amount of money. Well, with that being said, that is going to be talking about your purchasing power. The purchasing power is not necessarily how much money you have per se, but what you can be able to spend and get when it comes to physical goods and services. Okay? So purchasing power. And because we don't look at it as just a single dollar amount, the value of the dollar or value of currency changes. It's really about purchasing power. You can have tons of money, but you live on an island with nothing there, you really can't purchase anything. So just kind of thinking about it from that standpoint. It's about your purchasing power. Next question. The blank is a statistical estimate constructed using the prices of a sample of representative items whose prices are collected periodically, shows how prices have changed between different years, and it's by far the most commonly used measure of inflation. That is going to be the Consumer Price Index. So number 6 will be D. 5 is C, 6 D. Okay. All right. Looks like we got another question in here. Didn't really realize that, but it's going to be nominal. Nominal means the price for the past has been adjusted for inflation. Going on down to number 7. Looks like it's kind of skipped numbers here. That's okay. We'll get that corrected. Number 7. Blank is caused by either consumers bidding up the prices of stuff or producers rising prices and producing less because there's an increase in production cost. That is inflation. Okay? Inflation. It's inflating the price. Think of it that way. Moving on. Number 8, number 9. As far as what you're looking at here, again, didn't realize there was an extra question thrown in there. That's quite all right. We'll deal with that. So, number 8, number 9. A bubble. A bubble is an economic cycle characterized by rapid escalation of asset prices followed by a contraction. It is created by a surge in asset prices and warranted by the fundamentals of the asset and driven by exuberant market behavior. So that is a bubble. Number 9, a situation wherein the real GDP is lower than the potential GDP at the full employment level is called a recessionary gap. Again, lower, so it's receding. Think of it that way. Lower, recede. That's just a good way to kind of keep that in mind to be able to do that question or to think about that later on in life. Number 10, fiscal policy is the way a government adjusts its spending levels and tax rates to monitor and influence a nation's economy. That is something some people have a problem with, how they can just manipulate the economy by with some of the things that they do, especially the Fed. Number 11, 2009, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act was a stimulus bill that added more than $800 billion to the economy. So, with that being said, when you get upset because one president does something, guess what? They all do these similar things. Yes, President Trump did a stimulus bill that was over $1 trillion. This is a part of the Obama administration and what they did. So sometimes they work, sometimes they don't work. But this, number 11, would be A. Number 12, when the economy has an inflationary gap, the government can cut spending or raise taxes or do the combination of the two. Again, when you're talking about economy having a gap, it's not necessarily that inflation's always bad. Inflation can be good, but when there's a gap, there's problems that can happen. So we're looking at contractionary fiscal policy. Okay? That's what we're looking at there. So notice cut spending, that's not expanding. So just kind of putting that in to perspective there. Okay? So to get that in your head, it's easy for people to miss that question. 13. John Maynard Keynes is going to be one of the most influential and controversial economists of the 20th century. Basically, he created modern economics. Okay? So just to let you know, number 13 here is C. 14 and 15. 14, to stimulate the economy, government needs to what we call deficit spend. Deficit spend. Which is spend more money than they collect in tax revenue. And unfortunately, this is can be an issue sometimes. 15, raising taxes and cutting government spending to reduce debt is called austerity. It's a good thing. It's what people argue about, but at the same time, it can be a bad thing because all of a sudden, when you raise taxes, the people don't like it. So it's a hard sell, even though you're trying to cut into debt. So it definitely is one of them hard sales for a lot of people, but it can help cut into debt. But unfortunately, the reason why it doesn't work so well is because the debt is caused by government misuse of money, and then again, they're wanting to raise taxes from the people to help pay for it. So we kind of realize that. 16, we're looking at budget deficit. That is the amount by which a government spending exceeds its revenue over a particular period of time. Typically, we're talking about a year. What country has the largest debt in the world? That's easy. That's a good old US of A. So, if you don't like debt, then you should like austerity to get rid of debt. Okay? Things like that. So, about 1/4 of the United States government spends its money on Social Security. So when Republicans and Democrats, conservatives, liberals fight over government spending, the biggest group that gets the money is over Social Security. We spend a lot of time fighting over welfare, making sure everybody gets taken care of, or we spend over national defense, and why do we spend so much money on humongous bombs and planes and tanks and so forth. And we argue over those points when really we can do both, and we do both. Those are just political things that we argue about. Really, the biggest one is grandma and grandpa, great-grandma and grandpa, when it comes to making sure that we're paying them for what they put in. Social Security there in some areas, that's where most of the government spending is done, about 1/4 of it. 19, when the government is unable to pay its bills, this is called a default. And that's why you get one side or another politically that wants to pin down the other group because there's issues. Oh, we need to help the economy, or this is going on. Some may say, no, we don't need to do that. We need to take care of our bills, learn to pay our own bills. And so you get those arguments. And unfortunately, we're in the middle of all that. 20, the Federal Reserve is the central bank of the United States. 21, the price of borrowing money is called the interest rate. So when you borrow money, it's going to cost you. Heading down the home stretch here. 22, most central banks have two important jobs, which are, again, now most of us don't really realize this, a central bank, we're talking about, like Federal Reserve, so forth, we're talking about that type, not talking about community trust bank here locally. But anyway, their most important jobs will be regulate and oversee the nation's commercial banks and then monetary policy. That's the two big ones. 23, if the central bank wants to speed up the economy, they can increase the money supply, which will decrease interest rates and will lead to more borrowing and spending. Again, this is where we're just in the middle of it, and the Federal Reserve can kind of do what they would like to do. There's no real checks and balances there with the Federal Reserve. This is going to be expansionary monetary policy. Again, speed up the economy, increase. Expand, increase. So that will help you with that question and understand those policies a little bit more. Last two here, 24 and 25. 24, which of the following is not a way the United States Central Bank can change the money supply? So this is at least one thing, they cannot veto the president. That's not part of it. They can change the reserve requirements, how much money is held in the bank, change the discount rates, open market operations, they can determine what goes on there. 25, banks have to hold about 10% of their deposits in reserves. The other 90% is called excess reserves. Okay, what they can do to loan out and do other things with, invest, so forth. So this is going over your test. I'm sure if you watch the video, you'll be pleased to see all this. It will help you greatly. You ought to get a good grade. Just remind yourself that there's going to be a final exam. If you've taken the coding test and you did okay with it, or you may benchmark, don't worry about taking it. If you have not taken the coding test, you definitely need to take it for sure, okay? So this will pretty much end our class, and hopefully this will help you as far as your grade and what you're wanting to do in life. Just be sure to get all those other assignments turned in. And if you need any help, please contact me. We only have just a few days left here in this semester. Have a good day.